Welcome to the second in a series of neuroscience and social science updates I'm going to be doing. I wanted to include some of the latest research that our good scientists are doing because the kind of investigation and inquiry we're engaged in requires us to be critical not only about what's going on outside of us but also about how we perceive it. And I think the best way to do that is to run a parallel track and take a look at the mind, the brain, and how we perceive. So there's this game called the Ultimatum Game, and social scientists use it to look at behavioral economy and how people react. There are two roles the participants can take, the proposer and the responder, and the proposer gets to propose how $10 is split, and the rules are simple. If the responder accepts it, they both get to keep whatever part of the money they were allotted, and if the responder rejects it, then nobody gets any money. They run this through multiple times with a large pool of people, and each person playing both the proposer and the responder in the typical game. Back in 1947, when they ran this originally, the people who ran the test thought it was going to be pretty predictable at a 90-10 split. That is, the proposer would offer the minimal amount, 10%, and the responder would accept it, not having any choice about it, but still wanting to gain the $1 per turn that he or she had as the responder. What surprised them was that there was a very strong average at about 40%. That is, the responders would more frequently reject offers lower than 40%, and the proposers would more often propose something closer to 40%. Well, it turns out people don't act like computers and maximize their profits according to game theory. There were social preferences that were proposed to be manipulating the offers and the acceptances. Things like fairness, altruism, reciprocity, these entered into the calculus, and while it's been debated to what extent this is expressed as a strategic move and whether it is expressed as a genuine appreciation of that social norm is debated. These social norms accounted for the difference between the expected 10% and the observed 40% offers, but it did not account for the individual variability in the individual transactions. So they took a look at that and found that the biggest component, the biggest variable, changing the amount of the offer and what was eventually accepted was the social status or the perceived social status, race, gender, age, physical attractiveness. All of these factored into the kind of offer and acceptance that was happening in the individual transactions. In this particular study, they had 34 students, 17 men, 17 women, and they had them play a variation of the Ultimatum Game, where they made 120 offers to people that they only had the job description of and a name. And they used jobs that were typically male-dominated and typically female-dominated, and had a variety of names, both masculine and feminine, and many ambiguous. Based on that study, they found that the stereotype alone, it wasn't necessarily dealing with the actual individual, the stereotype alone was enough to trigger prejudiced offers. On average, women and female stereotyped jobs ended up getting offers of 45 cents less on average. Triggering the masculine stereotype alone was sufficient to get the higher offer quicker, and to have the proposers stick within social norms. Okay, what's the takeaway from this? I think it's important to keep in mind that nobody set out to act in a classist or sexist way. It was just a game in which people acted quickly and tried to maximize the amount of money they came away with. There was no differentiation between the roles. There was no job performance difference, so to speak. So I think, in my opinion, this goes a long way in explaining the wage gap between men and women for equal work. Now, how does it get this way? How do we have this stereotype, and how do we get rid of it so that we can treat people fairly? Well, that goes back to subconscious programming and media, and I'd really suggest that you take a look at the first video in this series on the habenula. I'll try to post the link below. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks a lot. Take care. Be good.